Today we're going to be doing something a little bit different that doesn't actually involve me sitting behind the sim rig and doing any driving. We're going to make the short trip across the county line into Norfolk, famous for its lavender, Snetterton Raceway, and a little thing called the 4X Annex. That's right, today we are heading out and we're going to go meet Damien Cross from Damien Cross Racing over at the 4X Annex, which I'm really looking forward to. So, yeah, what am I doing sitting here? Let's jump in the car and get on over there. Yeah.
And I got sort of used to it, but then when I got when me and Sally got together, she was really like, she'd like go, cool, he's fit. I go, oi. And I go, well, you know, and I go, no, I literally got a message from him. Like, oh, they were otherworldly people to her. But to me, it's just like, oh no, that's just so and so.
Yeah.
And so yeah, that was quite weird. And then when you meet someone in person, you're like shorter than I thought, and you go, that's a bit.
It's weird though as well, because being like in YouTube or Twitch and streaming and everything, everybody knows what you look like, but you don't know what anybody else looks like, and it's like
some people. I had this at my sister's wedding. I was at the bar, and the guy came up to me and goes, "You're Damien Cross Racing, aren't you?" Like, yeah. He goes, "Oh, I'm in your Discord." "Oh, are you? Who are you?" It's just like really strange because you just don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know their avatar, and then when you go, "Oh, yeah." And sometimes, I mean, it's this tricky thing as well when you're interacting with people and they have their username, because I know a lot of these people on a personal level, but it's that kind of like judgment of am I outing them as being called this?
Yeah.
When they're like they're up as Akunin, for example, and I should refer to that person as Akunin, whereas I know him as a different person. So it's quite hard when I'm chatting to him. But I do like to use the real name if I feel they're comfortable to do it, because
I think that's the difference over sim racing, isn't it? Because a lot of people use your real name on iracing.
Yes.
So you're not hiding behind an avatar. So you do have that bit more of a personal connection with someone.
Yeah, that's it. Sometimes you'll even have like a stream and someone will go, "Oh yeah, I was the number 4 car." You go, "Oh, what's your name then?" And they'll say blah blah blah. But yeah, how did your name? You don't know. Until someone actually offers that, and then there's so many people out there, it's easy to forget and then feel quite guilty when you're having a conversation with this person, and in the back of your head going, what was their thing? You know, oh, is this the guy that races in like V8 supercars? Oh, someone else. And then sometimes I'll make the mistake of chatting to someone, thinking I've clicked who it is, but I'm actually referring to another person. And I think that's a bit strange. But you try and like, I love speaking to people on stream, and so engaging with them like the friends that they are is quite important to me.
Yeah.
So yeah, sometimes I can make mistakes, be spread or misremembered what they're all about. Yeah, it doesn't put me off. I mean, if they've got a problem, then hopefully they'll go, "Damien, that's not me, that's someone else." But yeah, no, really strange to meet people in life who you know through an avatar. Had this all, you know, from the advent of social media, working in marketing, we had Twitter and that sort of thing. Met people that I met, and they go, "Oh, I follow you on Twitter." Oh, who are you then? And as soon as I know their profile picture and their handle, makes complete sense. Yeah, and I even had someone who was an ex-TV presenter interacting with her for a while. And then she put on Twitter, "Just met Damien Cross. He's just as excitable in real life as he is." Oh, okay, well. So yeah, it's quite interesting. But yeah, putting that name to face is really nice. Yeah, and I think iRacing, using real names, I love the fact that it's really personalised people, and it also helps you to understand when you are racing someone that they are who they say that they are, and if they're a proper racing driver. I've seen this in the past. Old video ages ago, Dave Cam did a video racing Hakey Cobble. And it was genuinely him. And you could tell it was him. It was. And he went on the radio, and then the radio came back, and it's Hakey's voice. And that's just. I've raced Jack Doohan, for example, and I didn't beat him, but it's quite nice to go.
Yeah, just, you know, I've raced a real life racing Formula 1 driver now, of course.
Exactly. Yeah. And we had this as well. Getting into sim racing, had a friend of mine, Cami. So she raced for Fordzilla, which is like Ford's racing team. And I remember her saying, "Oh, you need to get on. If you're going to do some racing, get on iRacing. That's a real race driver." Oh, right. Have you raced any? She said, "Yeah, I just raced against Alex Albon." I was like, "Well, that's really bad. How do you know it's him?" He went, "Well, he's called Alex Albon, but also he was a couple of seconds back quicker than everyone else." All right. Okay. And this is the thing. People sometimes debate it. If they're there and they're called that name, but they're a 1.2k driver, not them. But there aren't many people who are a 7k driver who are going to pretend to be Alex Albon or Jack Dewey. But yeah, so I love that.
Yeah, start that conversation. Start with a good bit of
oh yeah,
good bit of chat for that. Anyway, we're sat here today in the 4X Annex with Damien Cross from Damien Cross Racing. Thank you very much, Damien, for inviting me over to the 4X Annex.
Right, it's been good to have you. As soon as I realised that you were not a million miles away from where I live, this was bound to happen. My mum's got a pub near where you live. Yeah. And I was like, okay, well, maybe we'll meet at the pub. And it made a lot more sense to actually come here and have a go on the rig.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for anybody on my channel that doesn't know, Damien is a fellow content creator. He has an excellent community over on Discord, Damien Cross Racing. He owns, well, doesn't own, but he runs 3 racing teams from that as well. So I guess for me, Damien, how did you first get into sim racing? What was it that brought you in?
Brought me in a love of cars for a start. So I see different types of people in the sim racing world, people who are really into simulation. So growing up, I loved cars. My dad had a tea garage, but he always said, "Don't work with me." He didn't want me to get dirty, or get all the injuries that he had over the years. And so I kind of really like cars. As in watching racing cars growing up, But I was kind of stifled because, as luck would have it, I have a blood condition, which means that I'm not really supposed to do any contact sport or anything that puts me in risk of having bruising, bleeding, breaks. So at school, for example, everyone would be playing hockey. I'll be running, which is great. And it's actually given me a nice. It's quite handy for braking on a low tail pedal. So I loved cars. Growing up, you get your PlayStation and Ridge Racer on the place. I mean, before that, even like in the 1980s, Amstrad CPC 464, where I had like twin turbo V8 in Outrun. Loved all that. But then Gran Turismo came up, and suddenly you had a booklet. In the booklet, it was telling you about friction circles and like that, about how, and you had your licenses. Trying to get those gold licenses, which became an obsession with control pad. So as that progressed, and then various generations of console, get your steering wheel, have your mates round, brilliant. Kind of dwindled off when life gets in the way, you work. I actually got into other sports as well. I put that on the back burner. Still loved cars, still loved watching Formula 1. And then when COVID hit, some of the guys that I used to know who'd gone on to be racing drivers then came to me, "Damien, the opportunity is now here for you to race against us. Get a sim." Like, I can't just get a sim. They're quite expensive, guys. These would perhaps have sponsors giving them simulators so they could practice during COVID. For me, I had to build up from scratch. So I got a PC that could just about run iRacing. That's where we're heading. Office chair, I used to wedge bits of cardboard in the caster so it wouldn't fall.
You've seen my solution.
I've seen it. So, yeah. I was quite impressed with your woodwork skills.
I wasn't.
If it does the job.
Well, yeah.
This is another thing that I think you're probably going to cover at some point is the equipment. But I built up slowly, managed to get onto iRacing. My first goal was to try and get a higher I rating than some of these guys that I raced with. I know chasing I ratings be all and end all, but it was quite nice when I reached 2.2, and it continues. And then over the years, you get better bits. A sim rig is a combination of many different bits, really, when you take everything into account, especially when you're streaming. And so you just build up slowly to the point now where I've got now what I believe is something where there's not many things that I'd actually break. Yeah.
On the subject of Janet,
where
did the name come from? I have to ask. It's not your typical dog name, is it?
No, it's it's doubly awkward because we named her Janet, thinking, "Oh, that'll be fun." I've got a cat called Dermot already, and one called Annie, so we tend to have human names. She came along a few years after the cats, and we're thinking what would be quite fun to shout across the field, like Deborah, stuff like that, or Margaret or something. And then we go, "Oh no, what Janet?" Janet seemed to fit. There's this cute little puppy. It's like, "That's baby Janet." What we didn't click though, the second part of this is not only was that a bit of a giggle, but that's my mother-in-law's name. Oh. What we didn't click. My wife calls her Mum. I call her Jan. And so we didn't think
Yeah.
Janet was that. So we had to then break the news to the other Janet that the puppy was called Janet, and we made out that she was already called Janet. We didn't want to change it, so we did come clean a year or two later. But she's been with me. Appeared in a few videos. She's sat on the rig, but she's a bit dubious about touching anything.
I'm sure it's not a coincidence, but I have to ask as well. Your actual social media and YouTube handle, was that kind of like a strategic decision to follow, similar to David Coulthard?
This came from Twitter.
Okay.
The reason I first started with the DC_F1 was that originally on Twitter I was Damien Cross Racing, but then that didn't really make much sense when I started. All I was talking about was Formula One name. Oh, I bet DC_F1 has gone. So I looked at DC_F1, literally all one word. It had gone, but it wasn't David Coulthard. Okay, that's interesting. And David was the real DC_F1. I thought that's quite strange. So I was like, I'll try DC_F1. It was available. It wasn't necessarily deliberate to try and dupe people, because that's a pointless exercise. My initials are DC as much as his are, so I thought, well, I'll just change it to DC_F1. Not many people over the years have thought I was anything other than myself.
Yeah.
One thing that has been a bit of a quirk of this, though, is there is another Damien Cross in the world. Now, I would advise caution if you Google this other Damien Cross. He has
viewer discretion. Do not Google Damien Cross.
Children to sleep. And there was because now if you Google my name, I come up fairly regularly across my different social networks. But in those days, he was award-winning in his industry.
Okay.
He was by far the more famous Damien Cross. He's got an E at the end of Cross as well. There was this great picture, because one of my profile pictures was me sort of doing that on one of my networks. And there was pictures of him all the way around Google Images, but me in the middle going like that. So he was dressed as you may expect him to be dressed, given the... yeah. So Google him at your
own discretion. At your own risk as well.
So some people have actually thought I was that guy. And that was quite strange, because before sim racing, I did triathlons. I set up a page on Facebook, Damien Cross Triathlon, and it started, I suppose my friends and family following, it started to then get followers who were expecting the other Damien Cross. However, Facebook then decided, the vast majority expecting that must be what the page is about. And so my friends and family were served ads that were more appropriate for fans of the other Damien Cross. So I had to stop that page just because the Facebook algorithm had decided to show my friends stuff that they...
So, going back to racing,
yep.
What would you consider your favourite discipline?
So, in sim racing, on iracing, is that what you mean, rather than like...
Either, so in real life and behind the sim.
Okay, so in real life, I've always been in F1. It sounds really cliche. People like to diss F1. At the end of the day, these are the cars that are Formula One. This is the one. Yeah. This is the top one. And the racing's not necessarily the best. But I'm not worried about that, because I really love the fact that you've got people like Adrian in his brains to try and figure out how the hell he can just grab a little kind of bit of an advantage.
Maybe more the engineering side than the actual racing side of it. But,
I like the drivers for the most part. I quite like the fact that some of them are divas. I quite like the fact that they do their own thing. I like it when they're a bit arrogant. I mean, people slag off some of the F1 drive. If you got in a car with Lance Stroll, you would be absolutely terrified. Yeah. Have no doubt. If you think that you're as quick as Lance, you're not. You're just not. So the drivers are amazing. They're athletes, but the cars are like trying to figure out that. Like when Brawn came along, I mean, I wasn't a Brawn fan, but the fact that they just turned up with this quirky double diffuser, I thought I could make out. Jensen went out, and in his first laps, he wasn't so sure about the car, and they went, "Jensen, you're miles quicker." That's brilliant. Yeah. So I like Formula One. If I'm going to go down to Snetterton and watch a race, obviously not one, so I'll obviously touring cars. But then, because I know a few people that race, so Toby Trice, for example, a lovely guy, races in GT4. He races a Porsche Cayman in GT4. This year, he's got a bit more budget behind him, and so it's actually, at the moment, he's doing his pre-season tests. He's never had a pre-season before. He's always had to go into the season unprepared. When he first started in Ginettas, he won 3 races in a row at Brands Hatch. That first, brilliant. If I can go and watch Toby, or go watch Rob Wellham, he's a guy who races in F1000, the little Formula Jedi cars with motorbike engines, I'll go watch Rob. So I love watching people I know. I like the touring cars. I know a few of the touring car drivers as well. I like being at the garages and saying hello to people. So I do that. But yeah, in terms of close wheel-to-wheel action, Formula One's not where it's at. On the sim, I like driving. I'm not really one for Formula cars. That's not the car's fault. It's just the wannabe Verstappen out there that just ruin it. Just can't be bothered, because I just know no matter how well I do. Saw your video the other day coming up to Blanchimont, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And then the guy behind you just.
But don't you find it's exactly the same in that instance? Don't you always find always the guy with the fault? I mean,
yes.
Adamantly, I was a massive fan back in the day of the Williams. It's the iconic Williams livery: the blue, the white, the yellow camel.
Yes.
And it's like, I love that livery. I'm going to drive it. And then I realised actually, people who drive Formula liveries on their car actually get a bad rap in iRacing.
Yeah,
so let's take that away. And but yeah, no.
Yeah, I also with the sim racing as well. You'll have noticed. Most people who follow my channel notice I have a very distinct livery.
Yeah,
that's my livery. No matter what car it is, people know. Oh, that's Damien. And that's very deliberate, not only to reinforce that brand. Around the 4X Annex, you'll see a lot of the West Vodafone era McLarens. Wouldn't want to race at that, because I don't want to be copying the likes of Dave Cool sort of thing. It's like, no, I'm not anywhere like them. I haven't earned these sponsors. If you see brands on my car, that's because I want to promote these companies. Yeah. Often they're people that I'm working with, or teammates or something like that, or just some equipment that I want to put on there. But so I wouldn't run around with a sponsor on my car that hasn't paid me to. Yeah. I love the fact that you're bemoaning the Formula car livery while you're dressed as a Formula car.
It's something I've been thinking about for a long while. Even like when I'm on my other channel, I'm like trying to think about like coming up with not my own like merchandise range, but like you've got obviously your Damien Cross branded T-shirt. And it's just something I do want to get to for the videos, but it's just like I've not thought about it. It's just finding. I don't know, maybe I'll wait until I do a bit of a rebrand, because I don't think my current logo would sit right on a T-shirt kind of thing. So yours is quite nice, the fact that you've got the 4 circles, it's quite nice.
Yeah.
So
that's it. Yeah, but originally it was just the 1 circle. Yeah. It was just the Damien Cross, that's it. It's right. The reason why I'm car number 10 is that Roman numeral 10 is a cross. So I always race car number 10. Perhaps even that you won't be able to see necessarily there.
I think I remember this from one of your videos actually, when you was doing a bit of a 4X Annex tour.
Car number 10. So this is a brake pad.
That's it. Yeah.
A brake disc from a McLaren GT3 car. And inside, although you can't see it there, it's got the number 10. So yeah, I've always been number 10. But it was just that 1 circle. And then when I thought I want to create a race team, because I was racing with Verano at the time, and that was great, but then you were sort of bound by that team there. And I wanted to be able to reach out to people in my community, which has worked out really well.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, we'll have a 3-tier thing. And the traditional thing would be to go Damien Cross Racing red, yellow, something like that. So there's not a 1-2. But I was like, no, I want a bit more character than that. So I just borrowed from the States, this idea of having like this character.
Yeah.
So they're 3 different animals. Got the Falcons, which are the quick guys, Peregrine Falcon, fastest animal. And then the Vipers are just like that kind of idea of it being like attacking, thing, not necessarily fastest. And Scorpions, so where people can learn their craft. They're not the fastest thing there, but actually they've still got a bit of a kick, a bit of a sting.
It's really good that you've done that, because like you say, not to alienate people, but obviously give everybody a chance to get involved as part of the race team and the experience of endurance racing or team racing.
And what a great experience. You shouldn't have to be a really fast driver. You have to be a good driver, but you don't have to be. So my dream would be to have one of the big events where all 3 of the teams are running. The trouble is, the nature of these teams is that they're not going to be in the same. Typically, the Falcons will be about 3K. The Vipers will be about as an average strength of field for that team. So we're never going to be in the same split, but I'd love to see them all racing together. We had Sebring 12 last year. Falcons were in the GT3 class and the Vipers were in the P2. So we were in different splits, but it's still quite nice to have 2 teams on the go. But that's another advantage of having 3 teams. If we do end up having people, someone wants LMP2, someone wants GT3, well, that's fine.
Yeah.
So yeah, it works out quite nicely. They don't get used enough. I like them used more, but who knows where it's going to end up. And it's nice to know that that's all built in. And being part of those teams as well, you then get the chance to share telemetry for Garage 61 and get to work with like-minded people, but also share their experience.
Because I think sometimes when you're racing on your own, you don't necessarily appreciate the strategy aspect of racing, because you very much just like driving from stop to stop. Whereas, if you're in that team, you've got your spotter on board, you've got radio chatting to you about the events and bits and pieces. I think what iRacing brings to the table in terms of the team racing is really good. And I did the team race review at Road America last year, before that, my only other experience of team racing was on Seto Corsa,
right,
which was a completely different kettle of fish. Obviously, it was like you only allowed one driver per team in the car at a time. The other person can't be on the sim. So I actually wrote in John Davey to help me with that one because my teammate pulled out towards the end. But it was really difficult because John was trying to be the spotter for me, but he was having to relay on stream or the Discord that we were sharing each other to be able to help. But obviously, you're obviously going to be a couple of seconds behind. So, but yeah, I've been really impressed coming over to iRacing and seeing what they've done and how they've developed the team racing side of iRacing. Really good.
Yeah, I kind of got into this desire to have this through basic knowledge. Watching this thing, 'cause in the early days before he was professional, he just used to he was the endurance racing guy, and it was him and Josh and a couple of others. But also you'd have Michael, who was basically he didn't drive. He was just there to tell them what the fuel strategy was, work out when they need to hit and what fuel saving they needed. But he was part of the team, and that was fantastic. You can't have that unless you've got iRacing, where people are in there spotting not only car left, car right, but also there's weather on its way. You know, that's a new thing.
I think it's even the simplest thing. So like instant changes that you want to make at the pit stop. And again, going back to a set of Corsa, you've got like a little side menu on the side, and you're having to map buttons to go up and down and across, but you just haven't got that extra person there just to. You want that change?
You just say, Nick, have you got my tyres ticked?
Yeah.
And one of the good things about like last year, for example, at the Nürburgring 24. We had 4 drivers who each liked the car different. We had to commit to a setup, of course, but then we could then change things like your brake bias. And so we had a spreadsheet of all different things. I'll show you the spreadsheet. But it had on there what our preferences were for traction control and brake balance and that sort of thing. So that when we came into pits, we could set it to the driver. And we were in the Cayman as well. Now, the Cayman is a quirky car, because the fuel tank's in the front, and so as you go through a stint, the front of the car's getting lighter.
I found that with when I raced the Porsche GT3 a couple of seasons back. Obviously, you just wrote that brake bias back.
That's it. Yeah. So it worked quite nicely. That every time you hit the dodge, you just hit one back. So by the time you got through a stint, which is only 7 or 8 laps, then when you get to the pits again, you wind it forward, ready for when the fuel's at the front. You can use the front tyres. That was quite good. But we had that all mapped out because I would like to get in the car with the bias further back than Fleming, for example. So I had to remember not only do I click it forward for me, Fleming wants it even further forward. So that was quite nice.
Obviously, we've had a chat before we sat down here in front of the camera. Am I right in saying Launch Life is your favourite track?
Yeah, the easy answer to that is yes, because once you've just said that to me, I'm now going, well, if it isn't, what is it? And I can't think of what the next one would be. So it has to be that. People, the longer tracks are going to be, nobody's going to get really excited about Tsukuba. I think that the mix of challenges on the North Life, and it's not just the corners, the curbs, for example, how close the barriers are, all that kind of stuff. The difference between the twisty bits and the long straight, there's nothing like it. And I know there are other long tracks like Le Mans. They're nowhere
near. They don't compare, because I mean, I a couple of seasons ago drove Le Mans first time on iRacing, and it's not even comparable. Le Mans is just all about long straights, long straights, fast cars.
That's it.
Whereas North Life, it's all about, like I said to you before, you're constantly on the brakes. You've turned in. It's just complete mental challenge for TCR. 9 full minutes of pure concentration, with like little bits of respite in between. It's
and every corner, there's not an easy corner. If I was spotting for you, and I went away for a bit, and then come back and saw the car was damaged, go, oh no, what happened? No matter what corner you had that accident at, I'd go, yeah, I've done that.
Yeah.
There's no corner where you're safe. Every single one we've had a crash at for various reasons. So getting it right is so satisfying, and it's a shame that people don't take it as seriously as good, because a lot of the time, I think if you jump into an official session, people are just jumping into it and they haven't practiced.
No.
Shame, because I think if people really took the time to practice it, and those at the front do, that's why I like to qualify, and I suggested to you
I did in the radicals.
The trouble with that as well, though, is you then find you've got 7 drivers.
Literally, I was P2. There was only 2 of us that had set qualifying times. There was P2 on the grid, and literally by the end of the first corner, I think 3 cars had already streamed past me. They were like 3, 4, 5, 6, 7K drivers. They're just absolutely quicker. But my mentality has always been, though, if you have a different mentality, obviously you're a bit quicker than me, but mentality at Nords is always there to drive, not there to race.
Right.
because it's such a difficult track. But for me, it's more about keeping it on track, keeping it out of the barriers, and just driving rather than racing.
Absolutely, because I'm quite in tune with the Nordschleife now. I race the top split, and I'm often going for the win. I am the other side of that. I'm in that extra bit where no, I'm there to try and win this. But then it's not about driving faster. It's about where do I want to be when we hit the... How far back do I want to be? Do I want to be in front? Do I want to be P2 or P3? And so trying to work that out as you're going around. Whilst, I mean, my priority when I get onto Nordschleife is get more than a second away from the guy behind me.
Yeah.
My priority around 6 minutes of that track is break the toe, just break the toe. That's all about that, because otherwise on a dotting he's going to get me. And then stay with the people in front of you. So if you make a mistake, it's so frustrating, not because you've lost time, it's like, I'm not going to get the toe down the straight. And that's such a critical thing. So for me, I'm at that end where I'm like, no, I'm trying to win this thing. And so I want to be in that hunt. And a couple of my videos, you see, I have won races. For me, although it is about survival, it's you having to still really drive to try and get the win, but yet you want to be in position down the straight. And then the experience of coming to the end of that straight, and there's people around you, especially when you're free wide, when you are the one to lift. Because you have to go single for the last two. You cannot go too wide. Definitely not three wide. So one of you is going to have to off, and you've built up a relationship with these drivers around you over the last 2 or 3 laps, and you're kind of getting a feel for them, how gutsy they are. And if you saw my radical race, there was one guy that I even said, I think he's going to bottle it. He didn't. He kept his toe in, and I think that was quite good, because I was dropped back by this one. I was out the toe, and there were two guys. I even called it and said, I think Ryan's going to bottle it, and he didn't. So I would have made the wrong judgment call. I would have gone side by side with him, thinking he's going to bottle it. He would have crashed. Yeah, that's the tricky thing. After all that racing, who's going to bottle it?
Yeah.
So but you could.
It's all about mental capacity in games.
It is. It's that chess.
Yeah.
But you don't get that at Summit Point.
No.
You do it to some extent.
On that, even look at John's race the other day in the M2s at Tsukuba. It's just there's no personality to that. So even with something like a Formula V where you've got the toe, it's still so difficult like that to get past. So putting big cars like that, you're kind of hoping that the front make mistakes, but. Although I'm always wishing for people to make mistakes, I kind of never want to wish it against people, because I want people to have the same sort of experience and enjoyment out of the racing and the sim that I do.
Yeah, I think we've all been there when you're making a video or streaming and the person in front of you makes a mistake, you go, oh no, but you decide to go, oh, oh, I've got it for him. Oh, I was hoping we were going to have a great. Oh no, it's such a shame, but you kind of go, oh, that's great.
But then on the other foot, it's like I've learnt now when I'm doing a video or a stream not to say, oh, well, I'm doing really well going into the last lap. Because the amount of times I've said that and then bottled it or spun it or and then thrown away a P2 or a good result is just... And
that's what you've got to bear in mind as well. When you think, I've lost this now, that person in front is probably thinking, oh, I'm all right now. Now you might then make the lapse of concentration that we would think. We always assume that we're going to make a lapse of concentration, but we don't ever assume that they're going to. So they do. And sometimes they do make a mistake because they're thinking, oh, I'm all right. And it's hard to kind of like realise that what you go through, whenever I jump into a race, I feel that everyone's better than me. Even if they're a lot lower rated than me, what am I doing? And sometimes I'll get pole and I'll still be thinking, oh, God, I've fluked the pole. Why am I thinking like that? I think it's just in your nature to think everyone's brilliant. But they're probably go, oh, I wish I was quick as that guy on pole. So it's just, you've got to take a step back and go, no, hang on. I am doing that second race that you did at Spa, you were right near the front. You know, there were 20 odd people. You were right near the front. I don't want to give any spoilers. So that's good, but I bet you're still thinking, I wish I was up there with. How's car number one?
Yeah, I think I said in my actual the cool down lap. For me personally, that race, I was probably there on the pace. The only thing was they were just outside of that toe.
Yeah,
I feel like it was the toe they were getting and the toe I wasn't getting. It was just keeping that gap and. Yeah, it's just one of those frustrating things about racing, I think. Always kind of... Sometimes you can overanalyze things and the things that you find which aren't necessarily there or aren't necessarily a problem, beat yourself up about it. So you've got to try and put it to the back of your mind.
Yeah, we spent so long like hunting for those tenths of a second. If you see it a lot in like all of the YouTube, where you're so desperate to get in that toe. And when we're talking about gaining a tenth or two in a lap, it doesn't seem like a lot, but that can get you in or out of the toe. And so by gaining a tenth on a lap can just get you on the next straight. I'm now only 5 tenths. And on the next lap, I'm right with them. If you don't get that 1/10 2 laps ago, you're never going to get there. But we spend so long dwelling on how we're possibly going to get that 1/10 that we forget that one little mistake can cost.
Yeah.
This realization in a real go-kart. It was just a corporate thing. I worked for an insurance company at the time, and we had this get-together with all different insurance companies, all came together for a bit of a fun thing. Of course, I wasn't taking it. It's fun. It's like, oh no, we've got to do well. But you were paired with random people. Paired. It's 4 on a team. I think it was like a 12-hour race, and so there were people from other insurance companies. It was great fun. But when I'm in the car, I was trying to catch the guy in front, and I blistered my hands. It was like
in their car.
Yeah, but I managed to gain 2 seconds on my stint over this guy, and then I pulled into the pits, came to a stop, and the guy getting in the car adjusted himself. That's my 2 seconds gone.
Yeah.
And I just spent the last 20 laps of blistered hands gaining to. We dwell so much on these 1/10 of a second when we could do that, and then the guy in front might just run off. You go, oh, okay, I'm now 5 seconds ahead of it. So not making mistakes is a much bigger deal than trying to find that extra 10th, especially in the endurance race. So yeah, and I was saying to you earlier when we were chatting about trouble with racing in really high splits on endurance races, and it's really annoying because a lot of the time, if you do like an hour race, a lot of the positions you'll gain will be freebies. And in endurance race, if there's 30 splits, for 25 of those, a lot of the positions you gain freebies, but in that top bit, it's really frustrating because they don't make mistakes. So, yeah, then you do have to try and find that 10th. We see this a lot with people. Like, one of my favourite people to watch is Electric Racing, Russell. And a lot of time, he does my head in because he's chatting away during qualifying. Like, you're going to run out of time, Russ. You've got to do an outline. And he'll forget and he'll come to the line and he'll go, oh, I've run out of time. And he'll be at the back of the grid. He's not bothered. And then during the race, he's just, I think he did IndyCar at Sebring the other day. And his qualifying lap was 3 seconds. Qualifying lap was 3 seconds a lap. He still did really well in the race because he just didn't mistakes. He just kind of plodded along. I mean, he'll probably say, I wasn't plodding along, David. I was trying hard. I was pushing really hard. Yeah. But no, relatively, it was like, he didn't mind. I would be distraught if I got through qualifying. I was 3 seconds off. What the hell? Yeah. But he was like, all right, okay, fine. He didn't. I don't think he thought anything of it, and then he ended up doing quite well. Yeah, it's the more experience you get in sim racing, the more I think you realise that it's not worth making risky moves on people and trying to find that extra 10th. No benefit to. And then that takes us back to this whole thing of like the wannabe Verstappens in Formula 4 and Formula 3 that do go for those moves, and then an innocent bystander take it out. You get me down coming out of Radion. That's fine. You're faster than me. You'll get me at Radion. Anyway, I don't know. I've gone off on a hell of a tangent.
Absolutely fine. I think we've probably been and chatted quite a bit here and had a good conversation. So me and Damien are actually going to now spend some time. We're going to actually jump into the rig. I'm going to have a bit of a better look around the 4X Annex before the rig, and hopefully Damien's going to be able to teach me the secret sauce to becoming a 7K driver on iRacing.
Yeah, if I knew that, I'd be a 7K driver. But if we can get you above 2K for a start, I'm sure we can. Yeah, I'm sure we can. Yeah.
So we're going to jump in the rig. So that'll be in another video coming up real soon. Thanks again, Damien, for having me here. It's a great privilege and pleasure to be here. And make sure you go and check out Damien Cross Racing on YouTube. All his links to his socials are down below in the description. But thank you very much for watching, guys. Until the next one.
Yay! Nice one, buddy.